Welcome back. As painful as it might be for me, I am going to go through the rapid game that I played on Lichess last night. The game review on Lichess said I had 10 blunders and 10 mistakes. Now my opponent did almost as poorly, but pulled it out in the end. However, I can't get Lichess to do away with the inline notations, so I can see the moves listed over there, what I should have played instead of my blunder. What I like to do is follow the eval bar, and when it jumps, go back one and see what I should have played, guess it on my own without the lines turned on, without the inline annotations. So I have imported that game to chess.com, where it didn't say I had 10 mistakes and 10 blunders. It says I had 8 mistakes and 2 blunders, but 12 misses. Either way, that's 20 moves that I have to take a look at and see what I did wrong. And the graph here shows very similarly to the graph on Lichess, where it's just jumping up and down. In fact, it looks like most of the game I was in charge. Most of the game I had an advantage, but I did give my opponent several significant advantages in the middle game, and then of course gave it away at the end. But I am going to switch to the analysis tab. I'm going to turn off the lines, and I'm going to go through until the eval bar jumps badly for me, and then try to guess what I should have played instead and figure it out. I will speed up the move by move during editing. Hopefully you'll get something out of this. My intention is to try to get better at chess, as always. All right, let's just go. All right, well, that last move was a mistake when I played b4. Honestly, my idea here was that my opponent might take on passant and I would take back, because their pawn push here on c4 had, I guess, caused a little bit of a problem for me, and that just looked like the best way for me to get rid of that pawn. But apparently that wasn't true. What should I have done instead here of this? Should I have just played b3, or should I have just ignored that and gone on? I didn't want to develop this knight here. Oh, I guess I could have just put it on c3 where knights normally go. Yeah, that's maybe what I should have done, is just knight to c3 and then develop this bishop, and then worried about that later. Or maybe later, after I developed those two pieces, maybe I should have moved the rook over here and then pushed the b pawn. That's the only thing that I can figure out, because my king side looks solid right now, about as good as it should. Yeah, that's my guess. Developing one of or both of the minor pieces, or possibly putting the queen here and then developing the minor pieces. Let's turn on the lines. Knight to c3, or even knight f to d2, which is weird. That's my third best move. Wait, b3 was my second best, so I'm not too far off. But this was an abandoning of my opening principles here when I played b4. I don't know what I would have done if they hadn't taken, so maybe that's why b3 is better than b4. Because if I had gone past, well, then that pawn's just sitting there. It's a passed pawn. b3 prevents it from being a passed pawn, right? Because then if they press forward, I just take it with the knight. Yeah, I think b3, okay, I think I understand why b3 would have been better, but otherwise just normal opening principles. Get your pieces out. Not sure why bishop to d2 wasn't a good idea, and I'm definitely not sure why the f knight to d2 is a good idea. I don't know. How bad would it have been if I had just put the bishop here? Okay, that would have taken away what little advantage that I had. Yeah, that would have taken us down to 0. Okay, and before that we were at nearly +1 if I had played knight to c3. Well, that makes sense. Let's turn off the lines and keep going. All right, well, I shouldn't have taken that knight with my knight. There were a couple of dips there, but it went from like 3.1 down to 2.5, and I'm not counting those as mistakes or blunders, at least for me. If you maintain a strong advantage or a significant advantage and the number just drops a little bit, that seems more like not an ideal move or an inaccuracy rather than a mistake or a blunder. But here it dropped from 3.2 to 1.5, I think, which that's a full 2-point drop. So I should have done something else here. I'm guessing it was develop. Well, I can't really develop these pieces, can I? I guess I could have gone there to threaten that knight, but then it could have come in here and threatened my queen. That's why I should have developed one or both of those two minor pieces earlier before playing b4, because now my rook is just stuck here and these two pieces are stuck on the back range. They blocked this check with their knight. I've ruined their ability to castle. You saw that through the sped up moves that the check earlier forced them to move their king, and they did. So what should I have done here? I don't have a hanging piece. Actually, you know what? That piece is hanging. Should I have threatened that piece, the bishop? No, because I think it just would have dropped back, right? Well, the rook's aiming at that knight, but my queen's protecting it. Okay, so maybe it was knight to c4, because then that bishop doesn't have safe squares anywhere along here. My pawn guards that square, pawn, rook. I mean, I guess it could have dropped back that way or this way. So it would have had 4 safe squares backing up had I dropped this knight to c4. And I think maybe the advantage of knight to c4 is that it guards this spot, so then I could get the other knight out. I'm going to guess that's what it was. I was wrong. It was queen to d5. I did notice that the bishop is defended. The bishop is defended. So it's queen to d5 doesn't make sense. Yeah, I didn't even see that the knight was defending it backwards. Wow. Okay, so what does queen to d5 threatens that, as well as the knight's not defended. Also f3, asking that knight to move someplace. But queen to d5 is definitely the best because it threatens the knight, but it also threatens here, and nothing's guarding that. That's threatening mate. Okay, so what do they do to stop that? I guess they would have to drop the knight back over there? No, they wouldn't move that knight at all. Wow. Okay. I'm surprised by that. It says queen to c7 is their best move, and queen to e7 is their second best move. Okay, I get e7 because it would guard this. If they went to c7, it says I would take the knight, not here. Why wouldn't I take there? If they went queen to c7, why wouldn't I do this? Because they could move. I get that. Oh, and then maybe I have trouble getting out of there? That would still be an okay move. It says I could pick up that pawn and that one, but my best move there would be just to take the knight. Well, my question then is here, why wouldn't it be a good move for them to move their knight there to protect that pawn? That saves the knight and guards against queen capturing on f7, right? For that matter, what about just taking the knight here with their knight? That also guards this pawn, and taking the knight would mean I wouldn't try to take the f7 pawn anyway, and that would protect the bishop with this. Oh, but I would still get their knight. So why wouldn't they take here? Oh, because I could take it and that knight's still hanging. Okay, but that's just an even trade, and then they move this knight, right? It says they would try to wait, queen to g5 is their best move now? I don't know why the knight to g5 wouldn't be better. What's so bad about playing the knight to g5? Oh, because the bishop's hanging. Wow, I was a little slow to see all that. Okay, but backing up, here, queen to d5 was my best move for the reasons already discussed. It forces my opponent to react to two different threats, f7 and this hanging knight. I need to learn to look for my opponent's undefended pieces on the board. That's what I'm learning here. And I'm also learning that from a book of tactics and puzzles that I'm reading right now by one of the Polgars. I want to say the book is by Susan Polgar, Chess Tactics for Beginners. No, Chess Tactics for Champions, I think is what it's called. It doesn't want to insult us by calling us beginners, so it's going to call us champions. All right. But yeah, I need to look for the undefended pieces and see how I can threaten them. And also, the chapter I'm on now is on forks. That basically forks these two threads here. Okay. Got it. Turn off the lines. What I did instead was capture that knight. That took away most of my advantage. Okay, and taking their queen. After I took their knight and they took my knight, and I had a almost +2 advantage. It was not to my advantage to take the queen. I'm going to guess I should have threatened this knight again. Is that what I should have done? Yeah, I probably should have played queen to d5 again, but that only threatens the knight, doesn't it? No, okay. I don't think that's my best move. No, that's not it. And I'm certain that it's not, because they would then check me here with this bishop, giving up the bishop, and my queen would be undefended. Okay, so it's not queen to d5 this time. It's something else. Maybe it's queen to d3 now, which still threatens the knight, but also gets my queen out of this line, gets my queen out of this line, keeps my queen off of this file. Queen to d3, because I still can't develop these pieces yet because their knight is guarding both those squares. Queen to d3 or f3 are my two guesses. Okay, queen to d3 was one of them. My second best move, according to Stockfish. Queen to e2 also would have been fine. I'm not sure about queen to e2, and I don't see why it's in first place, because it can be threatened there. When I take back, they're going to take back, and I'm only up a pawn at this point, just one pawn. Yeah, queen to e2 puts them on the offensive. I don't know that they would play that. They probably shouldn't at that point, especially with their king still in the middle of the board, but queen to d3, okay, I get that. But instead I captured their queen, and they took back. Normally that would have been a good move because it would have broken their right to castle, but here I had already broken their right to castle because their king had already moved once before when they were in check, so it didn't make sense to do that. I should have just brought my queen to safety. But I still have a very slight advantage. Let's go on and see where I messed up next time. All right, well, it was on the very next move. Starting to develop my pieces was a blunder, apparently. That eval bar is still moving. It's at -2.9 now, whereas we were just above 0. Well, I remember specifically what my thinking was here. I had been frustrated by their knight guarding those two spots and me not being able to get out. My idea here was that the bishop would guard this spot. I guess the problem with that is that they have two pieces pointed at that spot, the rook and their knight. Yeah, my idea was to guard this spot so I could get my knight out. But that doesn't help, does it? Well, that makes sense. Also, I guess that allows their rook to come in here, which it says is their best move. Okay, so what should I have played instead? I have a 0.5 advantage. I still can't develop those two minor pieces. Should I have developed the rook first? I left the lines on, didn't I? Nope, it says knight to d2. Well, that makes sense. Yeah, my idea here was flawed because they have 2 pieces guarding this square, so I couldn't get the knight out there. But they only have 1 piece guarding this square, and my bishop's already pointed at it. So I should have just developed the knight to d2, which would have threatened their knight. It says they would not take. They would come in here, and they are down 1 pawn, and it is... I have a passed pawn already, and a protected passed pawn here in the center. So maybe they shouldn't be trading off pieces at that point. So yeah, knight to d2, I understand that. Okay, let's go on. Okay, that wasn't as much a mistake as it was apparently inaccurate. Earlier, that was one of my best moves, but now it's not. We went from zeros, right at 0, to minus 0 point something, but it was close to -1, so that wasn't good. Well, since they didn't play rook to c2 on the last turn to threaten this bishop that I just put here and now has nowhere to go except back, and then they have a rook on the second rank here, I don't know what the next move would be, other than possibly maybe rook to c1? Because then I would have 2 pieces defending that square. If they took with the rook, I would take back with my bishop, and then I would still have the opportunity to play knight to d2. So if it's not f3, that's my guess then, is rook to c1. Okay. Nope, it was a4. Rook to c1 is my second best move, and f3 was my third best. f3's just not as good as I want it to be. a4. I guess a4 allows the rook to protect this spot for the bishop to move to, since the bishop is not in an ideal spot right now. And then if they realized they could play rook to c2, then I could put my bishop on a3, and we could trade off bishops here. Maybe. But I get rook to c1. I mean, I figured that out on my own, so it makes more sense to me than a4, which I didn't figure out on my own. Maybe a4 also aims to prevent the b5, but I don't know that they're about to play b5. Rook to c1, it would have been slightly less bad than what I played, which was f3. Okay, well, I had a +1 here, plus 1.1, and getting the knight out took us down to 0. Well, it's made so much sense to me to put the knight out because their knight's no longer guarding that square, but now I see why it's bad, and that's because the rook can go to c2 and once the knight's here. And it would fork those 2 pieces, and I can't protect both of them. The only way I could protect the knight once the rook is in there is I guess drop the bishop back to c1 to protect the knight, and then the rooks would be protecting the bishop. But then that's undeveloping a bishop. So yeah, I'm guessing here they should play rook to c2 instead. Wait, well, no, yeah, once I played here, they should play rook to c2. I don't know if I don't remember if they found it or not, but I should have played something different besides that. I know I shouldn't have continued chasing the knight because then they can just hop back in here. Should I have continued chasing the knight this way? I probably not. I don't know. h4 is often one of the moves suggested by the computer. Or maybe it's a4 again, and I'm only suggesting a4 because the computer said last turn that that was my best move. I assumed to put the bishop here. It was knight to c3. Well, that makes sense, because now that the knight's gone, they're no longer guarding this square. Only the rook is guarding that square. They're not going to trade the rook for the knight. Whoops, and the whole reason for me putting the bishop here in the first place was to play knight to c3, and now, because my opponent messed up, the computer is saying I should play knight to c3. Not here, where I can immediately get forked, because once I play there, that's what they're supposed to play is rook to c2. Or rook h to e8, because this pawn's not defended. Those 2 moves would maintain equality. All right, knight to c3, which wouldn't have been a problem if I had stuck to my opening principles before instead of trading off for their knights and stuff down there. Okay, off the lines. All right. Well, the whole reason that I felt compelled to push this pawn now is because I knew the knight couldn't hop in here because I'd put my knight here, which must have been part of my plan at the time. And since I never got punished for it by their rook coming in, once I pushed this pawn, their knight jumps out. Well, I thought, well, now I can jump in here and threaten this bishop because I'm still a pawn ahead. Maybe what I should have done instead was figure out a way to protect this backward pawn, perhaps by moving my king up. Maybe at this point I should have moved a rook over to the open file to contest that, and then I could have put this knight back here to protect that backward pawn. But it definitely was not putting the knight in here. Maybe it was putting the knight in here on f3, but then where does it go from f3? I guess it could go there and then get in front of this other pawn, but no. Or here, no, because the rook just takes it. Or here, then where's it going? I can't go there or there. Okay, I'm going to guess one of the rooks to c1. Okay, both the rooks to c1. Rook a to c1, rook f to c1. Well, I don't feel so bad now because that makes sense. They can take, but then whichever rook I didn't move there, I would take back. It says that they wouldn't take if I did that. According to the lines listed above, if I moved my a rook over here, it says then they would play knight to h6. I assume aiming at these 2 squares and protecting eventual pawn pushes perhaps. But if I played rook f to c1, it says then they would play this other rook over here like we talked about earlier, aiming at this backward pawn. Oh, well that makes sense. Because if I played here and they went to hit the backward pawn, I could still protect it with this rook. Well, one of the rooks to c1 was my best move here. That makes sense. All right, taking their bishop, which was my plan once I got the knight out there, was a bad idea. I'm guessing part of the reason it's a bad idea is that I just now developed that knight and I should probably use it for something more useful. Or leave it where it is, or move one of the rooks to that open file to contest the open file. Well, one of the reasons that I wanted to take the bishop was not only to get rid of this knight that's kind of had trouble getting out in the first place, so I felt like maybe that horsey was hobbling a little bit, and it could go ahead and capture a piece of roughly equal value and be done with it. But another reason is that this bishop is just pointed here this whole time. I have two pieces guarding that pawn, but maybe if I had played a4 earlier like the computer wanted me to and then put my bishop here, we could have traded off dark squared bishops and then I would still have the knight. Maybe, but here it definitely wanted me to do something else. I don't know if I should have just blocked that pawn's path forward. What I was going to do was wait till it got there and then push this pawn to kind of have a little chain there. And I thought maybe eventually I would get this other one up here. But in order to do that, I needed to get rid of their bishop first. That was the idea. But I'm going to go ahead and guess it was one of the rooks to c1. Oh, this time only the a rook. Well, the f rook is my third best move. Okay, it was one of those, or knight to c3. I guess aiming over here, but it didn't want me to take the bishop, so maybe not. Maybe going here to protect the rook coming over, to shield it, kind of. I don't like that very much, because it looks like they can pick up a pawn out of that, doesn't it? Because if they sacrifice their bishop here and I take back, then that knight's not defended. So they gave up a bishop, but got a knight and a pawn. Oh wait, I don't have to take with my bishop. If they took there, I could take with my rook and the knight would still be defended. So rook a to c1 makes sense. It gets the pawn's already defended. I can move the rook over. Got it. It was at least inaccurate this time for me to put the rook on c1. Okay, because yeah, we were at 0.7, 0.8, somewhere in that range. But when I played rook a to c1, it dropped to minus 1 point something, 1.9. Although, like the last 2 or 3 turns, that's been one of my prime obvious moves that the computer said you should have just seen that. But now it's not. Now there's something better. Is it to protect this backward pawn now? Or block that pawn? Sure, no, it's not putting the king there. I know that because their rook is here. Yeah, okay, so it's definitely not the king move because of where their rook can go and win the bishop. But maybe it is protecting the backward pawn. I guess their knight can hop in here. I really don't know if it's not this because that seemed obvious the last 2 times once we looked at it. But now it is rook a to e1. Okay, oh no, rook a to e1. I said rook f to e1, but if I put the a rook over there, then my f rook is kind of stuck here. It doesn't have any places it can go. Rook a to e1. Well, at least my idea was right that I wanted to defend the backward pawn, but why not rook f to e1? What does that do? That would have been a huge blunder because of this. And then I have to undevelop the bishop. And then they probably bring their other rook over. Oh no, then they play this. Oh wow. Okay, back up one more. I should have played rook a to e1. So if they came in here, this would be the case. It still says they should play rook to c2 and have a slight advantage, but then I could play rook to f2. Oh, because they're aiming at this pawn. They're aiming at the g pawn. And the only way that I could protect right now would be to do this. That's the only way to protect the bishop and that pawn. Because here, if I just dropped the bishop back like this, that's a huge blunder. And they bring this knight in and they're looking at all kinds of spots right there. And now I can't protect the g pawn this way. And I'm -5 no matter what I do. But what I played instead was, wait, this is where I had the mistake, right? Yeah, after they took back the bishop, what I played was rook a to c1, and it said that was bad, but now this isn't my best move. The lines have changed. Pawn to a4 is now my best move. And it says if I did that, they would bring this rook into c4, aiming at that pawn, which is protected by my rook, and then I would play f5. Okay, it is protected from behind, but okay, so now a4 is my best move. Well, what if I played a4? Yeah, it says they're going to come in here. Because I don't have any more pawns that can attack it, and I don't have a light squared bishop or a knight. So the only way I could dislodge the rook from that square would be to trade off a rook for it. What I did play though was bring a rook over here, which would keep them from going to that square. Oh, and now it says rook a to e1 is my best move again. If I go forward and come back another time, it's going to change that again probably. But one of those 2 moves was my best move. Either bringing this rook over here so I could have some sort of defense against their incursion, or playing that for reasons that I can't ascertain. The previous blunders or the previous suggested moves that I should have made instead of my mistakes or blunders, I understood. This one, I really don't. I don't understand why rook a to c1 is worse now than it was before, but it was. Let's keep going. All right, there's another blunder. They put a second attacker on this pawn, so I put another defender on it. That was bad. Should I have brought this rook to here to put another defender on the e-pawn? Oh no, I should have just moved the e-pawn, right? Is that it? Oh, I left the lines on. Yeah, okay, it was it. e4. That's the only move. Not rook to c3 is my third best, but king to f2 is my second best. Of course, if I make one of those moves and back up, those two might change position, but e4 is the best. That makes sense because the knight's not attacking that spot. The knight's attacking this spot. And once I move the pawn forward, their rook can't see e3 anymore where the knight could go. Only my rook can see e3. That makes sense. I got it. And it doesn't leave this pawn hanging because the bishop's on that. It does leave this pawn hanging, but nobody's attacking that pawn right now. So I should have played e4 here, but I didn't. All right, turn off the lines. Okay, I'm guessing I should have just taken this pawn or let it go, because moving my pawn up, which was what I had been thinking the whole time. I think I mentioned that a couple of minutes ago. If they came down here, I was just going to go up and develop this long pawn chain, which I have the potential for that pawn chain to go all the way down here to d6. But moving forward was not the best move, so my only other options to deal with that pawn are to take it or ignore it. And if I ignored it, what should I have done? Played e4 again? Was that it? It's got to be either taking it or e4 again. Let's take a look. It was e4 again. Or g4 now. Because now that they're not in that spot, they can't en passant me on the g-pawn. So I can take my g-pawn all the way up. But e4 is still better. Okay, well that makes sense. g3, no good. It's my third best move, but no good. All right, my next move was also a blunder. My opponent played their g-pawn, giving me a +3 advantage, and I just moved this bishop to c3. What was I thinking? What was I thinking? Was I trying to zigzag around in here? Where would I go? That spot's protected. That spot's protected twice. That spot's protected 3 times, and that spot down there is also protected twice. So I don't know where I was going with you. Oh, maybe I was coming here. Maybe I was coming here to put an extra degree of protection onto this backward pawn. Well, then why didn't I just move it? That's got to be my best move here too, right? Or take. Maybe taking. Nope, e4 again. Okay, not taking. e4 or d5 now. d5 maintains +2. Oh, because d5 aims at this. They just unprotected that pawn by moving their g-pawn forward. So their f-pawn is now backward and weak. So playing d5 goes to a square that nobody's attacking yet. It controls 2 center squares and threatens this pawn. Okay, I get d5 and I get e4 for reasons already discussed. Or g4 is my third best move because it attacks the knight and forces it to go somewhere, which I assume it would go backwards to attack the pawn I just pushed. So that wouldn't have been a good idea, because then how would I defend it? Guess I'd have to bring a rook over to defend it at that point. So yeah, e4, got it. I finally played e4 and it wasn't a blunder, so that meant that it was one of the best possible moves in that situation. My opponent made a mistake and gave me the advantage back by playing here, and I'm guessing the advantage was the fact that I could still play e4 all this time, and they weren't doing anything about it. I don't know what they were supposed to do about it, but they were supposed to do something besides what they did. And I finally played e4, which forces that knight to go somewhere. I don't remember where it went. We're about to find out. It went over there. Let's find my next blunder. I'm going to guess it's my next move. Okay, I was at +6 and then it dropped to +5, which really isn't a blunder. And I mentioned at the beginning of this, if I'm way ahead and the number drops a little bit, but I still have a very significant advantage, I won't count that as a mistake. But I'm guessing here I should have just taken this knight. Because during the game, I remember once I moved my king here thinking, oh, I should have just taken the knight because my rook's protected a bunch of different ways. So I wouldn't have to worry about this, about them coming down through there to take it, right? I don't need to worry about that because my rook is well protected and I got a free piece. I'm just going to check and make sure that that's what no, I was wrong. I should not have done that. Okay, so was the move I made was my third best move. Second best was check. I wouldn't have checked because they would have taken, and that's what it says, because they have a king guarding that spot too. So if I took and they took and then I took with my rook, which it says I probably would, then they would take with their king, and then I guess I would check again. No, I would check again with my d-pawn at that point, even though it's not defended. And then their king would take that pawn too. That's what it says in the second line there. But my first line was to play d5. I guess the computer finally saw the wisdom of my plan, and the only way to complete that plan is to play d5, wait for that knight to move, and then put my pawn there on d6. And then I would have connect 5, which I believe wins some sort of jackpot. Just kidding. But it would be cool. So the computer has seen the wisdom of my pawn chain plan and wants to play d5. But taking the knight would be bad. What's so bad about that? Not that bad. I would still be +5. And it says that they would take my rook at this point, and I would not take back with my rook. That would be my third best move. Better would be to take back with my bishop or my king. Stockfish has settled on king being the best, but they're all +6. So I should have just taken the knight. Wait. Why? Wait. That's my best move. I went forward and I backed up, and now the only one that's +6 or higher, oh no, it's just changed its mind again. 2 of them are +6.3, and one of them is taking the knight. But the first time I looked at that, that was not it. And now this isn't my third best move. It's not even listed. Well, like I said, it wasn't really a blunder or mistake, maybe an inaccuracy to play king to e3. All right, well, we knew we wouldn't have to go far because I had a combined 10 mistakes and 10 blunders for 20 problem moves. And even here on chess.com, where it had a different number of mistakes and misses and blunders, it still added up to 20. There it is. I had a +5, right? Or +6, +5 something. Going here was bad. Why did I go here? I'll tell you why I went here. I remember. And I didn't carry the timestamps over when I copied the PGN file from Lichess to chess.com. I don't know if you can copy the timestamps over. So I don't know how much time I had left here. But I know it was a factor. I know they have an advanced pawn that's not yet a passed pawn. But what if they could make it a passed pawn? I thought, what if they sacrificed their knight here? They already did sacrifice their knight there, and I didn't take it. But now, their knight's got a second life. And what if they want to use that second life to create a passed pawn? Because if I take back there, guess where this thing's going? All the way down. It's got a rook behind it. That rook's been behind it for some time. I don't remember for sure, but it might have been there the whole game. Has that rook ever moved? That might be, those two things right there might be the only, 3 things might be the only pieces that never moved in this game. But yeah, that pawn can become a passed pawn right now if they take here, if I take back. What if I didn't take back? Well, then they just got a knight in there, and I'm missing a pawn. That whole pawn is just gone now. And then that means this pawn can join its friend, right? These two guys, or gals, who knows, could start marching through together because they're friends if the knight gives up its life for this pawn. That's why I moved my rook over, but that's a blunder and takes away all my advantage. Okay, now that I've explained all that plan, maybe I should explain to myself what I should have done. It was not rook to g1. I should not have been worried about this, apparently. I should have been worried about this, I guess. The knight capturing on c3. I mean, I could have just dropped it back, right? Or wait, no, it's d5. That's what it is. It's d5, because that's what the computer said last time. It wants me to complete my pawn chain. That's what it says. d5. Once you go about spending that much trouble creating a pawn chain, and your opponent has made a nice blanket for your pawn chain, then go ahead and make your pawn chain longer. And unfortunately, they can't create the rest of the blanket with their other pawns because they gave those pawns away. But I can finish my pawn chain. I have 2 passed pawns right now. That's okay. I should have seen that. I've learned enough about passed pawns to do that. It's not just passed pawns. Oh my goodness, I just saw that. This pawn's already guarding those 2 squares. This pawn would be guarding those 2 squares, so all those squares would be cut off to the king. Now, for a moment, the knight could safely move back to one of those 2 squares because this pawn would be pinned then because my king is down here with this rook pointed at it. But I do get that. They probably wouldn't want to go there. If they did, I would get my king out of the way, and then they would need to move their knight. And wherever they moved it, then I could play d6 and have my pawn chain. And 2 connected passed pawns with rooks behind one of them. All right, I got it. My very next move was a mistake that took away all the advantage that my opponent gave me by this move. What should I have done? It's not d5 now, because now their king guards that spot. Maybe my opponent saw that I should have played d5, and that's why they went there. But for some reason, that's a problem. That gives me something. What does it give me? Does it give me an opportunity to put a rook behind this pawn? No, not that one, because that would lose my bishop. What about this rook? That's my guess. Rook g to d1 to get behind this pawn so it can go. And I should quit worrying about this guy. That's my guess. Nope, I was wrong. Rook g to d1 would be my second best move. King to d3 would be my third best, which I guess would get me out of the pen here. But that just opens me up for stuff like checks down here, and then I would have to move somewhere else, and then their knight could go back. Rook to c2 is my best move here. I'm going to guess that that's because that's an open file. And once I got my rook on c2, I could put my other rook on c1 and then move the bishop, I guess, to c4 or maybe c2. And then I would have 2 rooks right there on this open file. That's the only thing I can understand about that move is rook to c2. My very next move was also a blunder because I went to protect the bishop. Why? It's already protected. What am I doing? What does this accomplish? I don't know what that accomplishes. Yeah, I cannot explain why I did that. But I'm gonna guess I should have played rook to c2 because I can't play d5. Nope. Now I should have played rook to c7. Only move that maintains an advantage is rook to c7, aiming at that pawn. Well, they would move that pawn then, right? No, apparently that's not what this is about. It says if I played rook to c7, they would play rook to c8, and then I would play rook to d7 check. I wouldn't take their rook or that free pawn that they so handily left unguarded. I would check them on d7, and then wouldn't they come closer to me? Well, if they went that way, it says then I would take the pawn. I wouldn't check them here where my bishop protects that square. I would go get that pawn then, after checking them. For some reason, it would be important to check them first. Okay, but that's the only move that maintains the advantage. But but why wouldn't they move the pawn? Tell me that. It's not among their top 3 moves to move that pawn. But most people I've played would do this. Not only does it get the pawn out of danger of the rook, but it threatens my bishop. But now, if they did that, I have a +10. Because now, I would not care about the bishop. I would not care about the bishop because their king can't go anywhere. Oh my goodness, their king is trapped. I would come here, and they would have to, what would they do? They would now come here. What it says? No, d8. Rook to d8 now. Rook to d8 and c8 give me a +12, either one. So let's say they go there to prevent this check. Well, then I can save my bishop, but not down here. I would save my bishop this way, threatening their rook. So they would move their rook to c8 or b8 even. What does b8 do? Nobody knows. b8's their best move. Okay, now I would check. Nope. Now I would go back this way or check. Yep, it's decided on checking. All right. Well, I checked. Okay, that's all covered by my rook. That's covered by my pawn. It has to go there, right? King to e6 or knight to d6. If it goes knight to d6, that's mate. Okay, so it goes here. Then I very calmly check again. No, because that hangs my bishop. Now I need to bring my other rook down. Okay, so now all these are protecting each other. Well, the bishop's not protecting anything, but it's cutting off squares from the king. That's why their pawn moving was bad. Would I have seen that? Probably not. I have no idea why I played rook to b1, but I did. It gave away my advantage. My opponent did shove the pawn forward without me provoking it. Maybe they saw a ghost down here, and they thought so hard about that's probably where I was going to go because it looked so good. And then I didn't, but they moved that anyway. And that turns out to be kind of bad for them. So maybe I should have put one of my rooks on c1. Nope. I left the lines on. It said I should have played bishop to d2. That would have gotten out of the way of me hitting this pawn. So if I'd played bishop to d2, they wouldn't have tried to protect that pawn with the rook. They would have just traded for my bishop. And then if I had taken it, they would have taken this pawn, right? Wait, that's my best move? +2. They take it's their best move, and I take their knight, and then they get this pawn. Now I can't complete my pawn chain. Well, that's sad. Oh, but now I get this pawn. Well, now they're going to line up here, aren't they? They might. Rook to d8, rook to b8. Those are the 2 best moves. Well, let's say they went here thinking once they moved their king, I'd be in check. Okay, well, then I would move my king because I don't want to be in check. Actually, you know what I would probably do? I'd probably do that. Force a rook trade and get an extra passed pawn, but then the extra passed pawn wouldn't be protected, so I would have messed up. Okay, so if I was smart, I would come over here because now they can't check me. And are they going to come here? That's what it says. That makes sense. Okay, so they went there. I would go here. So that way when I moved out of the way, they would be in check. Rook to e1. Okay, I guessed that. What would they do? Rook to d3? Wait, that's d3, right? It says if they did that, then I would go over here and it would be check. And then they would just go behind their rook. Oh, well, that makes sense. Oh, but then I have a rook behind my passed pawn. That's nice. Oh, they have a rook down there too, though. I don't know. I know I started getting just a little silly the last couple of moves, but man, these blunders are starting to kill me. That is what I played, and it gave away my advantage. And what I should have played here was bishop to d2. Well, I didn't want to trade off because I saw during the game that if they took and I took, then they would win that pawn. That's why I went to e1. The problem with e1 is then I can't get this rook out. I know that, but it was my second best move to do it. There's only like 10 moves left, and this video's gone on way too long. I'm just going to keep going here. They did not play their best move here. That gives me a +3 advantage. If I play a4 or bishop to f2, that makes sense to let my rook out. Well, I didn't do any of those things. I went the long way. I thought I could get the rook out like this. Yeah, that doesn't make sense, dude. Just move your bishop out of the way. Okay, well, I went to rook to f1, which takes away some of my advantage. But then they did not play their best move here. As long as I go king to d3, I'll be fine. But I didn't, did I? Nope, I went down there. That takes us back to even. And their best move is to take that pawn, which threatens my rook. Did it force me to put my rook in a good spot? It says the best would have been just to threaten the knight, but I went ahead and took that free pawn. That was fun. Their best move here is not to take this free pawn, but that's what they did. And that's because of bishop to f2. Look for checks. Checks. Checks, captures, and threats. Did I do that? No, I did not. I checked over there. That wasn't horrible. And they didn't go the best direction. They went there, where now I can take this pawn. Did I see it? I did see it. I'm up +5, and there's like 10 moves left. 9. How did I lose this? They did not play one of their best moves, so I'm up +9, +9, 9.5. If only I play rook to d7. I don't know what rook to d7 does. Why is that +9? I didn't play one of the other top 2 moves either. I did that. That's bad. Okay, that's what lost me the game apparently. I had to play rook to d7 or rook to d3. I don't get d7 at all. It's not protected there. d3, at least my king protects it. But then I would lose. That's the reason I went here, is because my bishop's hanging. But I had to play rook d to d1 or rook to d7 or rook to d3. One of those 3 squares would have been fine. Mostly d1 and d7. d3 is not nearly as good for some reason. And let my bishop hang. Okay, well, let's say I went here. What? They're not going to take my bishop. Let's just say, why wouldn't they take my bishop? Oh, because it's mate in 3. No matter what they do, okay? If I do this, wow. The problem here is that my rook is also hanging. I thought I was solving both of those problems by going over here, but I have to solve one of the problems and not care about the bishop. Okay, so what if they noticed that if they took here, I would go there threatening mate? They wouldn't have done that. They would have played rook to b8. What? That's what it says, rook to b8. Then I would just get my bishop out of danger this way. And I would be at +20. But I would have to know. No, it's their turn. They would have to know to play rook h to d8. Okay. Well, we missed all that. I went to protect my bishop, and they did not play one of their best moves. They did play rook to b8, which would have been their best move if I had done the other thing. But I didn't do the other thing. Isn't that weird? They keep playing what would have been their best move had I played my best move, but I didn't play my best move, so that's not a good move for them. And now I can get my bishop out of danger. Did I? I did, but I didn't put it in the right place. I had to play bishop to c3, the only move. But instead I got it way out of danger to what? Down there? That's where I put it, on c7. That's bad, really bad. And the reason it's really bad is because they can get checked. That's why they were supposed to play over there, so they could come down here. That file was completely open. Nothing was in the way. I had 2 choices, only 2. I chose the slightly worse one. They're supposed to play here now, trying to checkmate me. But my opponent's been thinking about this pawn for a long time. They still haven't ever moved that rook over there on the h file. So they took this pawn. They still have an advantage though, don't they? Oh yeah. My best move was rook to a1. Did I find it? I did not. I went after the knight for no reason whatsoever. They did not move the knight. They played one of their better moves, which was protecting the knight with the king. I did play one of my better moves here, but it's too late. My opponent needs to play knight to e3, threatening that rook while my king is trapped. Oh, and also threatening here. Nice. They didn't see that. They got this out of the way because they've been thinking about this pawn forever. And yeah, so I checked them there and they got out of check. And can I stop that pawn? Oh, my bishop's hanging too. So I went to save my bishop. That turned out to not be great. They can just take it for one thing. They didn't. They moved their pawn forward, which is their best move. I need to play rook to h1. Well, I thought if I did that, they would come in front of it. And then I would have to take that rook, and then they would promote right there, and it would be really, really close to over. But it doesn't really matter. I played rook to d2, which was not among my 3 best moves. That just hangs a rook, as it turns out, so they took it. Then I played that to stop that pawn for one time, but it doesn't matter, does it? They went there. Again, aiming for this. Yeah, I've got to end this video. Hopefully I can edit it down to a reasonable amount, but it turns out that some of these moves I did understand before I saw the lines on Stockfish. That's encouraging to me. Even if I'm understanding and seeing those moves a day later, that's better than not understanding them at all. Some of them, like a4, mentioned a4 a couple of times. I never did understand that for sure. Maybe the first time it mentioned it, I thought it might be about trading off my dark squared bishop for their dark squared bishop because I was having trouble getting that dark squared bishop to go anywhere. That kind of made sense. But the next couple of times it said a4, I wasn't sure. The time where it said rook to d7 just a few moves ago, I would have had a huge advantage if I'd played rook to d7 and given up my bishop. That required me noticing that their king was cut off and letting them take my bishop. That I think I can eventually get to that point because if they had taken my bishop, which is just bait, Just threw my bishop out there, and if they take him, I win. If they don't take him, it's still a battle. I think I could have seen that I had a little bit of I had their king trapped. It came too far into my territory. Also, all those times it said d5, I think I understand that too. Hopefully you got something out of this. I think I did. I'm going to keep pressing forward, trying to get better. Thank you for watching. Thank you for spending time here, and I'll see you next time.